Hey, random people out there on the internet. If you've been keeping up with these beginner videos, you'll remember that I had spoke to the fact that if you're just getting into this, that you might want to use more inexpensive materials until you can get a mastery of your tools. So today we're going to look at, well, what you might end up with when you go to the home center and buy material. Let's take a look. Well, this board here seems kind of useless, doesn't it? Actually, it was a board that I used on sawhorses. I've had it for a while. It didn't look like this when I bought it, but if you look at it, it's clearly not straight. So we're going to talk a little bit about what exactly is going on here. Okay, first of all, understand that there's several ways to talk about a board that's not straight. Whenever a board has a twist in it like this, we call that cupping. All right. If you look down the board like this and you see a rise or a fall, that's called a crown. When you look down a board like this and you see a bow, that's called a warp. I'm sorry. We already talked about that. When you see it going like this, that's a warp or a bow. All right. So what happened here? This board didn't look like this when I bought it. It was fairly straight. But wood moves. As it dries out and the cells begin to contract, it'll start moving. And the way that it moves is dictated by the grain and the knots. This is a particularly knotty piece of wood. Anywhere there's a knot, it's going to cause a lot more movement than when the grain's straight, as you see it is in here. So at this point, most people would just say, this board's done. I can't do anything with this. I mean, unless I'm building a bow and arrow and all I've got left is the arrow, can't really see much use for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to harvest what I can from this material so that I can make something out of it. If I'm successful, this board will become something that I can say that I built using some really, really messed up wood. It's crowned, it's bowed, it's cupped, and it's warped. It has serious, serious issues. So as this video progresses, we're going to see how we can take care of that. So we'll be back in a few minutes. So the first thing we're going to address here is going to be cutting it into smaller sections, finding the straightest sections I can find and trying to save that section. What I'm seeing here is the first couple of feet of this isn't real bad. Okay, so that's going to be my first cut. I'm going to set this up here and I'm going to cut off about 2 foot of it. And let's see, that's still twisting a little bit. About right there. Now the piece we ended up with is fairly flat, fairly straight, but it's not very long. So now we're going to look at what we got left here and probably maybe cut another 2 foot of it, give or take. In my never-ending quest to be general, I always say about as opposed to exactly. Let's cut that. Again, not perfect. Still a little bit of a bow in it. It's not too bad. What we got left? Okay, so this one, there's a little twist in it, and down on the end, you might be able to see it, there's a pretty sharp bow right here. Okay, so we're going to cut the end off of it. And see the knot here This is what's causing the movement. So we're going to cut that knot off of it right there. And I think that is probably waste. But what do we end up with now? Take a look at it. Let's do a little bit of twisting. Looking down the board, there's a little bit of a bow, a little bit of a crown. So the next thing we're going to do is try to take the crown out of these. Whatever little crown there is, we're going to try to take it out. And we're going to do that with the table saw. So we'll be back in a minute and we'll show you how I'm going to do that. So what we need is a board that's flat, has nice parallel edges so that we can cut it into strips and make something out of it. So we'll look here, I got my table saw set up and I have one of the boards here and I have a trusted straight edge in the form of one of my levels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this through with the level. What this is going to do is going to make this edge perfectly straight. There will be no bowing or anything like that when I'm done with this. So close your ears, because here we go. Oh, need to turn on my dust collection. So now, this edge is perfectly straight. When we flip it over, put it back on the saw, and move the fence over to our feather board, we can pass it through again, and then we're going to have two flat parallel edges, which is what we're after. And there you go. These two edges are perfectly flat, perfectly parallel. We may not have addressed everything from the bow situation, but we might do that a little bit differently after a bit. Now, you saw that I used my level as a straight edge and put that level against the fence and ran them both through there so that this edge would be as straight as the edge of my level. That's how we achieved it. That being said, they do make things to do exactly the same thing. And if you're creative, you can make one for yourself. But this is what I'm talking about. This is actually called a tapering jig, but you can also use it to cut a nice, smooth, straight edge. We're going to see how to do that. You'll notice it has a rail on it that'll sit right in our table saw just like that. All right, so when I push this through, it also is going to duplicate this perfectly straight edge. So let's take a look and see how that works out for us. Don't you love live video? You get to see mistakes as they happen. In any event, it's not as big a mistake as we might think, because what happened is that we do have a nice straight edge on here, but it is not parallel with the other edge. So now what we do is we take the same stick, put that flat edge up against here, run this guy over here, and I can put my saw back where it was now, and we'll run this through right along this edge that's not straight. We'll see how all that works out for us. Again, nice straight edges, should be parallel with each other. Let's check that measurement and see. Three inches, 2 3/4, so it's not quite straight. So let's figure out what's happened here. My board moved. Actually, my fence moved. We're going to take another shot at it. Try again. All right, just under 2 3/4. Just under 2 3/4. Now we have two flat parallel edges, but it's still rocking. We're going to do something about that, but it's going to be a little bit later when I figure out exactly how I'm going to get as much out of that as I can. My intention is that I'm going to be ripping all these into smaller strips. They're going to be maybe 3/8 inch thick. The reasoning is I'm going to take all those strips and I'm going to glue them together in such a way as to make panels. And I've decided it's going to be a birdhouse. Now, once you have done this, okay, this wood's been sitting around for a long time, so it's fairly dry. And it has moved just about all it's going to. So the idea is that if you have cut it down, made parallel edges, and the wood is very dry, regardless of whether it has knots and whatnot, it's done moving. So once we get it to where it's flat, straight, parallel, then we can use it for crafts. Now, beginner woodworkers are looking for material that they can use to build small things, to get their hands on their equipment and learn how to use those tools. The whole idea behind this series of videos is to allow you the opportunity to move forward at a pace that's comfortable for you. If you've been watching the other videos, you see I've already talked about acquiring materials. I've talked about a basic tool set, and we're starting to expand our tool set. We got the table saw now, we got a miter saw now. I have a lot of other equipment that I'm going to bring into play as we move along. But for now, I'm going to try to do all this with just the table saw and the miter saw. So come back and join us for the next video, and we'll see what we end up with when I start breaking this material down even further. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for subscribing. And as always, be safe.